Okay. Okay. Uh, Good morning, Miss. Thank you for letting me have some of your free time for today's interview. Okay. Okay. Uh, First of all, let's start with some introduction, shall we? Can you tell me your full name, occupation, as well as the first and second language that you use?
Good morning. My name is Jessie Sash. Full name is Jessie Sharjit Wali. You can call me Jess. I am currently a full-time student studying in IPG campus one
Mm.
in Indonesia. My first language is German. My
Mm.
second language is English.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Uh, Now let us start with our first interview question. Um, in what situation or context do you typically use a specific language?
Uh, my relatives uh, with my community in my hometown. While for second language, I mainly use it at school,
Mm.
at campus, or also talking to others in my social circle here at where I'm studying.
Okay, thank you, thank you. For the second question, have you noticed any language preferences or dominance in your daily interactions? If yes, could you provide some examples?
For me, I prefer to use my mother tongue when talking to someone close to me personally. Like just as I said earlier, when I'm talking to my family, my relatives, and my friends, some of them, I use my mother tongue to talk to them. While for second language, I prefer to use it to talk to others because it's much more easier for them to understand me. And of course, yes, in while undergoing my studies, of course, English is expected to be used while conversing with lecturers or even my classmates because it's a language that we're trying to master. So I feel like so for some closer context, I prefer to use my mother tongue, which is my first language. While for second language, I mainly use it to converse with people I'm close with. I do converse with people I'm close with in English, but also for some situations where I'm not too close with them. If that makes sense.
Yes, yes, it does make sense.
Just as a medium for correction, medium
Mm.
socializing.
Okay, okay, thank you. Moving on. Are there any specific environments or settings where one language tends to predominate the over others?
Yes, yes, I would say yes to that because for me, I prefer to use one specific language at specific environments. And yes, that does dominate. And for example, at my home, my mother tongue, Dusun, usually dominates over any other language because it's the language that we're most comfortable to converse in.
Okay.
Like it's easier to get your points across in Dusun rather than other language like Malay or even English, because it feels like something that in my home personally, we are expected to speak in soon. So yeah, I feel like for in certain environments, one language does dominate over the others.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Have you noticed any variations in your language skills, such as vocabulary, grammar, or fluency, when switching between languages? If yes, how would you describe these differences?
Actually, I do notice that there are variations. For example, Dusun and English are two very different languages, and
Yes.
I recently noticed that my vocabulary in my mother tongue is quite lacking because I don't use it as much these days, and there are some instances where I can't recall the specific thing that I'm trying to describe when we're talking in my mother tongue. So in that way, I think the less frequency in using my mother tongue has affected my vocabulary and specifically in my ability to retain some of the vocabularies that I've learned from my childhood. So, and I've also noticed that I became a bit more fluent in my second language because of the frequency in using it. So, I'm not saying that I became less fluent in my mother tongue, but I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say is my abilities in speaking second language is better than my mother tongue if we compare it in that ways in terms of fluency. And as grammar, I don't really notice much difference, but I do sometimes I feel like I apply the structure from one language to in the other language, if that makes sense. Yes. Because so sometimes it does mess up with my ability to apply grammar accurately, specifically in English. And I think it is affected in terms of grammar, but it's not too noticeable. It does not make it in a way that is it's unable to be understood by the other person I'm talking to.
Yeah, okay. Understood. Do you feel more comfortable in expressing certain ideas or concepts in one language compared to the others?
For me, I feel like I'm more comfortable in expressing myself using my second language compared to my mother tongue. Because I find it's much easier. There are more words that can translate what I feel in English rather than my mother tongue, because we don't really talk about feelings in Britain. So, but as for English, I've seen so many examples of how to express certain feelings. So I feel like much more easier to express how I feel, like my emotions, when I feel happy, when I'm angry, or when I'm sad, like that. I feel much more comfortable when expressing it in English because because there are so many. I feel it's much more because the concept of feeling, like getting deeper in feeling of emotion, is not very big in this one. So you don't really. It's much more. The difference between that I notice between Lisun and English is you don't in English you can say it in a more straightforward way, especially for feelings. You just say that you feel angry, sad, or whatever. But for written, you have to imply. You don't really have the words that can translate what you feel at that moment. Like you have to choose your words wisely to make it understood that you're feeling something, because I feel that Dusun is very polite, language, because you don't really say, if you're angry, you just say, I don't feel. You can just say outright, like I don't feel comfortable in doing this, and
how do people around you generally perceive or react when you switch between languages?
For me, I didn't really see how people. I'm not sure how people perceive me because there were there were no instances where I code switch between Luzon and English, but when I use Malay, like when I switch language to English, actually, I see that the people around me will be like, okay, wait, you can do that, like that. Like there was somehow like it came off as a surprise for them. Maybe because it feels like I'm a different person when I'm talking in another language.
Yeah.
So maybe that switch is what people would actually be surprised at. But the attitude is about the same. It's just a momentary surprise, like okay, but they will take it as a positive. I hope I hope that they perceive me in a positive way because I see them to react in a positive way. Like bahasa Melayu. If that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Okay, so I think this is a wrap. Thank you very much for completing this interview question.